The sun, a cheerful orange, peeked over the tall city buildings, casting long shadows that danced on the streets. For most people, it was just another Tuesday. But for Anya Sharma, this wasn't just any Tuesday, it was the Tuesday. Today, she wouldn't just be Anya, the smart lawyer with a kind smile. Today, she would become Judge Anya Sharma. Her alarm clock, set far too early, hadn't even been needed. Anya had been awake since before dawn, a fizzy mix of excitement and nerves bubbling in her tummy. She carefully chose her best suit, a deep blue that made her feel strong and ready for anything. Each button she fastened felt like a small step toward her new life. Her polished shoes clicked softly on the hardwood floor as she moved through her quiet apartment, checking one last time that her judge's robe was neatly folded in its special bag. She pictured the grand courtroom, filled with faces eager to see her take her oath. Her family would be there, her friends, and even some old professors who had always believed in her. This was the day she had worked so hard for, the dream she had chased with all her heart. A deep breath, a quick look in the mirror, and Anya was ready to step out and meet her destiny. With her judge's robe tucked safely in her bag and her heart buzzing with hope, Anya stepped out into the crisp morning air. The courthouse was just a few blocks away, a grand building of stone and pillars that always filled her with a sense of purpose. She decided to walk, to enjoy the last few moments of peace before her life changed forever. Her sensible heels clicked a steady rhythm on the sidewalk as she passed sleepy shops and early risers. The city was slowly waking up, much like her own future. Suddenly, a patrol car, dark and imposing, pulled up sharply beside her. It wasn't moving with the usual flow of traffic. It seemed to cut directly across her path. Anya paused, a flicker of surprise replacing her happy thoughts. Two police officers, big and stern-faced, got out of the car. Their movements were quick, almost aggressive. Anya watched them, a small frown forming on her brow. She hadn't done anything wrong. She was simply walking to work, just like any other day, but this felt different. One officer, a tall man with narrow eyes, stepped directly in front of her, blocking her way. "Ma'am, can we help you?" he asked, but his voice sounded more like a command than a question. Anya's peaceful morning walk had just taken an unexpected, uneasy turn. Anya straightened her shoulders, trying to keep her voice steady. "Good morning, officers. Is there a problem? I'm on my way to the courthouse." She spoke clearly, her lawyer's training kicking in, ready to calmly explain any misunderstanding. But the officer who had spoken, his name tag reading Officer Miller, just scowled. "Where are you going, really?" he snapped, his partner, Officer Davis, standing silently but with a tough look. "And what's in the bag?" Anya felt a prickle of annoyance. "I just told you, I'm going to the courthouse. And this," she gestured to her bag, "is my judge's robe. I'm being sworn in this morning." She hoped that telling them she was a lawyer, and soon to be a judge, would clear things up. Surely, they would understand. Instead, Officer Miller laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "A judge? Right. And I'm the Queen of England. Let's see some ID, ma'am. And that bag." He reached out, not asking, but grabbing for her purse. Anya pulled back, surprised by his rough move. "Sir, you can't just," she started, but he cut her off. "Don't you talk back to me. You think you're special?" His hand was firm on her arm, squeezing tightly. The excitement of her big day was quickly fading, replaced by a cold fear. Anya tried to pull her arm away, her heart now thumping like a drum. "Please, sir, there's no need for this. I have my ID in my purse. I can show you," she pleaded, trying to keep her voice even. She didn't want to cause a scene, especially not today, of all days. But Officer Miller didn't listen. His grip tightened, and he yanked her arm roughly. Anya stumbled, nearly dropping her bag with the precious robe. "You're resisting, ma'am." Officer Miller barked, his face close to hers, his breath hot. He then shoved her hard in the chest. The unexpected push made Anya lose her balance completely. She fell back against the cold brick wall of a building, hitting her head with a dull thud. A sharp pain shot through her arm where he had grabbed her, and her back ached from the impact. Her glasses flew off, landing on the sidewalk with a clatter, the world around her suddenly blurry. Officer Davis, who had been quiet, now stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. Neither officer offered to help her up. Instead, Miller pointed a finger at her, his voice loud and angry. "Now, Are you going to cooperate? Or do we have to make you? Anya lay there, shocked and hurting, the joy of her morning completely shattered. This was not how her big day was supposed to begin. The commotion of Anya falling and the officers' loud voices began to draw attention. People walking by, heading to work or stopping for coffee, turned their heads. First, a few curious stares, then more and more eyes fixed on the scene. A small crowd started to gather, their whispers growing louder. "What's happening?" someone asked, their voice hushed. "Why are they doing that to her?" Another person wondered, pointing at Anya, who was still on the ground, struggling to find her glasses. A kind-looking woman with a bright scarf stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Officers, is everything all right? She looks hurt. Can I help her?" Another man, carrying a briefcase, also spoke up. "This isn't right. She's clearly not causing trouble." Officer Miller, however, didn't care about the growing crowd or their questions. He glared at the people, waving his hand dismissively. "Move along, folks. Nothing to see here. Official police business." Officer Davis mirrored his partner, putting on a tough face and making sure no one got too close. They acted as if the people trying to help were just getting in the way, not like they were concerned citizens. Anya, still dazed, heard the kind voices, a tiny spark of hope in the sea of her fear, but it quickly faded as the officers shut them down. She felt alone, even with people watching. After what felt like a very long time, with Anya still on the ground and the officers standing over her, Officer Miller finally seemed to lose interest. He looked at his partner, then at the still watching crowd, and let out a frustrated sigh. "Fine. Get out of here," he grumbled, giving Anya a final, hard stare. "And next time, learn to respect authority." He didn't offer an apology or even a reason for their actions. Anya slowly pushed herself up, her body aching. She found her glasses, thankfully unbroken, and put them on, the world snapping back into focus. Her arm throbbed where Officer Miller had grabbed it, and a tender bump was forming on the back of her head from hitting the wall. Her blue suit, once so crisp, was now dusty and wrinkled. Her knee stung where she had scraped it. She felt a deep shake inside her, like a building after a small earthquake. The officers got back into their patrol car without another word, driving away as quickly as they had arrived. The crowd slowly began to break up, some people giving Anya sad or angry looks, others just hurrying away as if nothing had happened. Anya stood there for a moment, trying to catch her breath, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and hurt. She was free to go, but the feeling of being unsafe, of being treated so unfairly, clung to her like a cold, wet blanket. Her big day had been ruined before it even truly began. Anya stood there for a long moment, the sting of the officer's words and actions sharper than any physical pain. Her body hurt, but her heart ached more. This was her day, the day she was supposed to feel proud and joyful, and it had been stained by unfairness and disrespect. A wave of sadness washed over her, heavy and cold. Then, beneath the sadness, a fire of anger began to burn. How could this happen? Right outside the courthouse, the very place she was going to uphold justice. She took a shaky breath, forcing herself to move. Her eyes scanned her dusty suit. With trembling fingers, she tried to smooth the wrinkles, to brush off the dirt from the wall. She adjusted her blouse, patted her hair, and checked her reflection in a nearby storefront window. The small bump on her head was hidden by her hair, but her eyes held a new, raw look. She didn't have time to dwell on it. Her swearing-in ceremony was in minutes. With her head held high, despite the hurt and anger swirling inside her, Anya walked the final steps to the courthouse entrance. Each step felt heavier than the last, her joy replaced by a heavy sense of injustice. The grand building, which usually filled her with inspiration, now felt cold and distant. She pushed open the heavy doors, carrying not just her judge's robe, but also the fresh wounds of an unfair encounter. The inside of the courthouse was a blur of marble floors and hushed voices. Anya found her way to courtroom 3B, her heart still heavy, but her steps quickening with the thought of her duty. As she pushed open the large wooden doors, a wave of warmth and light washed over her. The courtroom was packed. Every seat was taken, and people even stood along the back walls. A sea of friendly faces smiled up at her. Her mother, radiant in a bright dress, waved from the front row, a proud tear glistening in her eye. Her father, usually so serious, had a wide, joyful grin. Friends from law school, old mentors, and even community leaders who had supported her journey were all there. The air hummed with happy chatter and the excited anticipation of her swearing-in ceremony. It was a stark contrast to the cold, harsh encounter she had just endured outside. Anya managed a small, brave smile, trying to hide the lingering shock and pain. She nodded to familiar faces, her eyes quickly sweeping across the room. She could feel all their hopes and dreams for her, their belief in the good she would do. This was what she had fought for, this moment of honor and trust. She clutched her robe bag a little tighter, taking a deep breath before walking down the aisle, ready to step into her new role, despite the fresh wounds she carried. With a determined spirit, Anya walked down the aisle, her blue suit still slightly askew, but her head held high. She reached the front of the courtroom, where a large, polished wooden bench stood waiting. This was where she would sit, where she would listen, and where she would decide. A respected senior judge, Judge Elaine Hayes, smiled warmly at her from a nearby chair, ready to lead the ceremony. Anya placed her robe bag on a small table, her fingers brushing against the soft fabric. Even as she prepared for this grand moment, the physical pain from outside was a dull ache. Her arms still throbbed, a constant reminder of Officer Miller's rough grip. The bump on her head felt tender beneath her hair, and her scraped knee stung a little with each movement. But it wasn't just the body aches. A deeper hurt, a feeling of unfairness, sat heavy in her chest. She stood before the bench, facing her loved ones and the community, her brave smile hiding a storm of emotions. The bright lights of the courtroom seemed to highlight every wrinkle in her suit, every sign of the struggle she had just faced. Yet, she stood tall. This was her moment, her dream. She would not let the actions of two angry officers steal the joy and honor she had earned. She closed her eyes for a quick second, taking a deep breath, ready to begin. After the formal words and taking her oath, Judge Hayes invited Anya to say a few words. Anya stepped forward, her heart still a tangled mess of pain and purpose. She looked out at the faces in the crowd, her family's proud smiles, her friends' encouraging nods. She took a deep breath, and as she began to speak, her voice was clear and strong, filled with a newfound fire. "Thank you all for being here today," she started, her gaze sweeping across the room. "This is a great honor, and I promise to serve our community with fairness and justice." She paused, her eyes meeting her mother's. "I believe deeply that the law should treat everyone the same, no matter who they are or where they come from. Every person, whether they are rich or poor, powerful or weak, deserves to be treated with respect and dignity." Her voice grew even stronger, the words flowing from her heart. "Today, I stand before you, ready to do my part to make sure that fairness is not just a word, but a real thing in our lives. We must always remember that justice means treating every single person with kindness and understanding. It means listening to their stories and seeing their worth. It means upholding the law with a fair hand and an open heart." The experience outside the courthouse had made her words carry even more weight. She wasn't just speaking words. She was speaking truth she had just lived. As Anya spoke, her gaze drifted over the faces in the room. She saw her proud mother, her beaming father, and her friends, all looking at her with such love and admiration. But as she looked at them, her mind kept going back to the street outside. She remembered the officers' angry faces, the rough push, and the feeling of falling. She remembered the sting in her arm and the dull ache in her head. She thought about the kind people who tried to help, whose voices had been shut down by the officers. It made her wonder how many other people who didn't have a judge's robe in their bag or a crowd of supporters waiting, faced similar unfairness every single day. Her words about respect and dignity felt heavy and true because she had just been denied both. The memory was fresh, a raw wound, reminding her exactly why her speech was so important. The contrast was sharp, the warm, welcoming faces inside the courtroom versus the cold, harsh glares of the officers outside. The loud applause for her speech versus the dismissive shooing away of concerned citizens. This moment, right now, was not just about her becoming a judge. It was about promising to fight for the very things that had been taken from her just minutes before. She finished her speech, the echo of her own words filling the room, a silent promise hanging in the air. As the applause faded, Anya stood taller, a new resolve settling in her heart. The memory of the officer's unfairness, instead of breaking her, had made her stronger. She understood, more deeply than ever before, the important job she was about to do. It wasn't just about reading laws from books or making quick decisions. It was about making sure that every single person who came into her courtroom felt seen, heard, and treated justly. She thought about the faces she had seen outside, the curious onlookers, the kind woman, the man with the briefcase. They had tried to help, but their voices were ignored. In her courtroom, no one would be ignored. She would be the one to listen. She would be the one to make sure fairness won. This wasn't just a job, it was a promise. A promise to those who had been silenced, to those who had been pushed down, to those who had felt invisible. Her courtroom would be a safe place, a place where people could trust that the law was truly blind, treating everyone the same. She would use her power, not to be harsh or mean, but to bring balance and understanding. The painful experience of this morning had given her a clear path. She knew her mission was to be a judge who truly understood what it meant to be treated unfairly, and to work tirelessly so that no one in her court would ever feel that way. Anya finished her speech, her voice resonating with a quiet power. A new round of applause, even louder and more heartfelt than before, filled the courtroom. Smiles and nods of approval met her gaze. Judge Hayes, beaming, walked over and took Anya's hand, a symbol of welcome and support. And now, Judge Hayes announced, her voice ringing out, "It is my great honor to formally introduce our newest member of the bench. Please welcome Judge Anya Sharma." The words Judge Anya Sharma felt different now. They weren't just a title. They were a badge of honor, a promise, and a responsibility she was ready to carry. The crowd rose to their feet, clapping and cheering, their joy a bright counter to the darkness of her mourning. Anya felt a wave of emotion wash over her, pride, hope, and a deep sense of purpose. She was handed her judge's robe, a long, black garment that felt heavy with the weight of its meaning. As she put it on, the soft fabric settled around her shoulders, covering the faint dust on her suit and the small marks of her struggle. With the robe on, and her head held high, Anya walked to the polished wooden bench. She took her seat, feeling the solid wood beneath her, a firm foundation for the important work ahead. She was officially Judge Sharma, ready to help people, ready to make a real difference in the world, starting right here in her courtroom. The ceremony ended with more cheers and warm wishes. Anya, now officially Judge Sharma, shook many hands, accepted hugs, and smiled through a blur of happy faces. But even amidst the celebration, a part of her mind was still replaying the harsh scene from earlier. The sting in her arm, the shock in her heart, they hadn't completely faded. Later, in a quieter moment after most of the guests had left, Anya sat in her new chambers, the judge's robe draped over a chair. She ran a hand over the small, tender bump on her head. A deep sigh escaped her lips. Should she tell someone what happened? Should she report the officers, Miller and Davis? Her legal mind quickly went through the options. She could file a complaint. She could speak to the police chief. She could even make it a public issue. The thought of exposing their wrongful actions, of making sure they couldn't treat anyone else that way, burned brightly within her. It felt like the right thing to do, the just thing to do. But another thought also came to her mind. How would this affect her first day as a judge? And would it truly make a difference? Or just cause more trouble? She closed her eyes, weighing her choices. Anya opened her eyes, the courtroom now quiet and empty. The decision became clear. Reporting the officers might lead to a long, messy process, pulling her away from the very work she had just promised to do. It might become a distraction, a personal fight that could overshadow her bigger purpose. But she wouldn't forget what happened. She couldn't. Instead, Anya decided to use her new power, not just to fix one wrong, but to prevent many. She would not let the officers' actions make her bitter or afraid. Instead, she would let it fuel her. Her courtroom would be a place where the rule of law was not just spoken, but truly lived. She would be extra careful to listen, to be fair, and to ensure that everyone, especially those who felt powerless, received just treatment. She stood up, walking over to her new, grand judge's bench. She touched its smooth surface, feeling the weight of her new role. Her power wasn't just in punishing wrongdoers. It was also in protecting the innocent, in upholding rights, and in setting an example. She would make sure that every case, every person, was handled with the respect and dignity she herself had been denied. This was her way of fighting back, her way of making things better, not just for herself, but for everyone who walked through the doors of her court. As Anya sat at her bench, a quiet understanding settled over her. The hurt from the morning, the feeling of being judged unfairly, of being pushed and dismissed, these were not just bad memories. They were lessons. Sharp, painful lessons that would stay with her, guiding her every day. She knew, deep in her heart, that this bad experience would make her a better judge. She had always wanted to be fair, to be a voice for those who needed it. But now she felt it. She had felt what it was like to be powerless, to have her words ignored, to be treated without respect. This personal understanding, this raw feeling, would make her listen even more carefully to every person who came before her. It would make her look beyond the simple facts and try to understand the whole story. No one in her courtroom would be just a name on a paper. They would be people, with feelings and fears, just like she had felt that morning. Her own pain would help her remember to be kind, to be patient, and to always seek the truest form of justice. It was a heavy thought, but also a powerful one. Her struggle outside the courthouse had, in a strange way, prepared her even more for the important work inside. She would use it to shine a brighter light on fairness. As she sat on the judge's bench, the quiet of the empty courtroom wrapped around her. Anya took a slow, deep breath. Her mind was no longer buzzing with anger, but with a firm, clear purpose. She looked down at her hands, strong and steady on the polished wood. Here, in this room, she held a great power, a chance to make things truly fair. And she knew, with all her heart, that she would use it well. Anya made a silent promise to herself. She would always stand up for what was right, no matter how hard it seemed. She knew there would be tough cases, times when the truth was hidden, or when people disagreed loudly. There might even be times when her own decisions were not popular, but she would not back down. She would remember the sting of unfairness, and that memory would make her brave. She would be a shield for the weak, a voice for the unheard, and a seeker of truth for all. This promise was not just for her, or for the people in her courtroom. It was for the kind strangers outside, whose voices had been ignored. It was for every person who had ever felt small or unimportant. Judge Anya Sharma would fight for justice, with kindness and strength, for all her days on the bench. As the afternoon sun began to dip, painting the courthouse windows with golden light, Anya finally left her chambers. The long day, filled with both harshness and triumph, was drawing to a close. She walked slowly through the quiet halls, her judge's robe folded neatly in her bag once more. The physical aches from the morning's encounter were still there, small reminders, but they no longer held power over her. Instead, a profound sense of strength had settled within her. The morning's unfairness, meant to break her, had instead forged a new kind of resolve. She felt a deep, unwavering readiness for the challenges ahead. This wasn't just the end of her first day as a judge. It was the powerful start of a new chapter, one where her personal experience would shape her professional purpose. Stepping out of the courthouse, the evening air was cool and peaceful. The city lights began to twinkle, a hopeful glow against the darkening sky. Anya looked up at the grand building, the very place where she had been pushed down and then lifted up. She carried the hurt, yes, but more importantly, she carried a powerful promise. Judge Anya Sharma was ready. She was ready to face tough decisions, to listen with an open heart, and to make a big difference, one fair ruling at a time. Her journey had just begun,